The unspoken truth about the Black American psyche. Have you ever felt it? That deep ache in the spirit of our community. It's like a collective wound that we all carry, but rarely ever name. It's the echo of a history that we're constantly told to get over, but our very bodies seem to remember. This isn't about pointing fingers. It's about understanding ourselves. Because the unspoken truth is, you can't heal a wound until you have the courage to actually look at it. To start this journey, we have to give the wound a name. Researchers and social scientists call it historical trauma. It's the emotional and psychological wounding that builds up over a lifetime and across generations, all stemming from a massive group trauma. For Black Americans, this isn't about just one bad thing. It's about the centuries of chattel slavery, the entire era of Jim Crow, and the systemic racism that's still happening today. A pioneering scholar, Dr. Joy DeGruy, gave us a powerful way to understand this. She developed a theory called post-traumatic slave syndrome, PTSS. Now, PTSS isn't a medical diagnosis you'll find in a manual. It's a framework that explains how the horrors of slavery and everything that came after forced us to develop adaptive survival behaviors. These are beliefs, attitudes, and actions that were passed down through generations to help us survive. But many of them, in today's world, aren't productive anymore and can even hold us back. The American Psychological Association calls this intergenerational trauma, a phenomenon where the descendants of someone who lived through a terrifying event can show similar emotional and behavioral reactions to it, even though they weren't there themselves. This isn't just about the stories our grandparents told us, it's something deeper. Emerging science in epigenetics is exploring a haunting possibility, that the overwhelming stress our ancestors endured might have altered the way their genes are expressed. The theory is that these changes could then be passed down, literally embedding history into our biology, a living echo we're just now learning how to hear. To get it, you have to go back to the source. American chattel slavery was a unique kind of evil. It was built on the absolute dehumanization of African people, on the lie that they were genetically inferior. People were stripped of their names, their families, their cultures, their entire identities. They were brutalized physically, sexually, and psychologically. You had no rights, not even to your own body. Now, imagine surviving that. You learn not to trust anyone. You develop a constant hypervigilance, always watching for the next threat. You learn to bury your emotions, because showing vulnerability could get you or someone you love killed. These aren't character flaws, they are survival skills for an impossibly brutal world. Then, slavery officially ends, but the trauma doesn't. It just evolves. The post-slavery era brought lynchings, the KKK, and Jim Crow laws, which were just another system of oppression. The same racist structures that justified slavery continued, creating massive economic gaps, segregation, and unequal access to everything from education to healthcare. This is how the trauma got passed on. A mother teaches her son to be wary of authority, not out of bitterness, but as a survival tool. A father teaches his kids they have to be twice as good to get half as much, not to crush their spirits, but because he knows the world isn't a level playing field. These lessons, born from trauma, become cultural norms. Behaviors that were once essential for survival, like that hypervigilance and emotional suppression, get passed down to generations who don't even consciously know where they came from. The very strategies that allowed our ancestors to endure become our psychological inheritance. So how do these old echoes show up in the Black community right now? This is where the past slams into the present. First, let's talk about mental health. There's a stigma around mental illness in the Black community, and while statistics on belief vary, research shows many view it as a sign of weakness. This isn't an accident. It's a direct legacy of needing to project strength at all times to survive. The strong Black woman or the unflappable Black man aren't just stereotypes, they are roles we often feel forced to play, rooted in a history where showing emotional pain was a luxury we couldn't afford. This leads to Black adults underutilizing mental health services. In fact, among adults with fair or poor mental health, white adults are more likely to have received services in the past 3 years than Black adults, 50% versus 39%. This creates a strange situation known as the Black-white mental health paradox. Despite facing greater stressors like discrimination, some data shows Black Americans report lower rates of certain disorders like depression than white individuals. However, the depression we do experience is often more persistent, and Black adults are more likely to report serious psychological distress. Second, we see the impact on our identity. Dr. DeGruy talks about vacant esteem, a feeling of worthlessness that can come from internalizing negative stereotypes. For centuries, the dominant culture has blasted us with messages that Blackness is inferior. This can lead to things like colorism within our own community, where we absorb the oppressive idea that attributes closer to whiteness are better. It's an internal conflict that comes directly from trying to navigate a world that has historically devalued you. Third, there's the impact on our community. That profound distrust, learned over generations of betrayal, can sometimes turn inward. It shows up as a lack of trust in the medical system, born from atrocities like the Tuskegee syphilis study, which leads to worse health outcomes. It can erupt as conflict within our own neighborhoods because when a system is designed to hold everyone down, it's easy to see each other as competition for scraps rather than as allies in the same fight. The system was designed to divide and conquer, and we still feel the tremors of that strategy in our relationships today. So, if we're all carrying this wound, how do we start to heal it? The first, most critical step is acknowledgement. You can't fix what you refuse to see. Just having a name for this, historical trauma, post-traumatic slave syndrome, is incredibly validating. It tells us that the anxieties, the fears, and the struggles are not just in our heads. They are a logical result of an illogical history. It completely shifts the narrative from what is wrong with us to what has happened to us. Healing means reclaiming our narrative. It's about understanding those adaptive behaviors that were passed down. We can look at our grandmother's warning to never show your tears in public not as a cold command, but as a love letter from the past, a tool she gave us to survive. And with that understanding, we can then decide for ourselves if that tool still serves us today. We have the power to reevaluate the behaviors that are no longer helpful and replace them with ones that promote healing. Healing also demands community. Connecting with others who share this experience breaks the isolation that trauma thrives on. It's about creating safe spaces where we can finally be vulnerable without being judged. And finally, healing involves intentional self-care. This means actively nurturing our mental and physical health. It means seeking out culturally competent therapy that gets the impact of racial trauma. It means pouring our energy into things that bring us joy and affirm our humanity, whether that's through art, music, or activism, anything that helps us reclaim our power. The unspoken truth about the Black American psyche is this: we are a people who have survived the unimaginable. We are walking miracles. The trauma we carry isn't a sign of weakness, it's evidence of the battles our ancestors fought and won. But we no longer have to just survive. We can, and we will, thrive. By looking at this wound with courage and compassion, by understanding its history, and by talking about it openly, we take the first step toward healing as a community. We honor the resilience of those who came before us, and we clear a path for the generations that will follow. The goal isn't to forget the past, but to transcend it, so its echoes no longer write our future. Start a conversation. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Talk to your family, your friends. Ask them, have you ever felt it? Because the moment we start speaking the unspoken is the moment we begin to heal, together.